Pierre, we've been having a fun conversation. I can't believe where the time has gone. The 41 game mark means we're halfway through this Maple Leaf season. What's your read on Craig Berube's Maple Leafs thus far?
They're real good. I like their team a lot. I like the structure. I like the size. I like the left wing component. Rosie will appreciate this. When you look at Knies, you look at Pacioretty, you look at the size of McMahon, you look at the size, obviously, of Lorentz. If you're playing in a playoff series right now, Nick, that puck's going in the opposition's right corner all the time, your left, and there's all kinds of contact. And you see what Knies did. You saw the Pacioretty hit last night against Philadelphia. It's an easy game plan to create. It's a fun game for the players to play. It engages a cycle game in a spot where guys know where the cycles be created. And I love the depth and defense. I know McCabe goes out last night. I was listening to you and Rosie talk about it. That's another story for another day. Look at Simon Benoit. Honestly, Hathaway should have gone after him. I get why the other stuff happened. Hathaway got a rough ride from Benoit. Benoit's an equal opportunity hitter. He reminds me a lot of Rosie. He doesn't pick spots. He just goes get guys. And so their team's good. Toronto's real good. Not having Tanev in the lineup hurts them. You see the difference when Tanev's in the lineup. They're a real good team. This is the best Leafs team I've seen in a long time. They really are, because they are a team. They're not individuals. They're a team.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of positivity coming out of Leafland. What about Austin Matthews? He's kind of had some yo-yo of reports and results with his injury, whatever that is. Were you surprised to see him come back after his comments so early in that timeline?
You being a former college hockey player, you'll appreciate this. It's a busy time of the year for college hockey players. So I was actually at a bunch of college games on Saturday. I stopped in a restaurant to watch the third period of the Bruins in Toronto, and I see Austin Matthews is playing. And I'm going, what the heck happened? I didn't think he was playing in this game. And then obviously last night I was working for another network. I was watching him play last night. And, obviously 2 assists last night, 3 assists on Saturday. And you're saying this guy's back. Here's the one thing, though, and Rosie, I feel really comfortable saying this. I don't know if you guys have talked about it, Nick, or not. If he's not 100% and he can't get a sign off from the Leafs doctor, I would never let him play in the Four Nations. No chance. Because if they're going to win the Stanley Cup, Austin Matthews has to be as close to 100% as possible. And if he's not, I would not let him play in the Four Nations.
Pierre, you've been in management. What does that conversation look like behind the scenes as you get close to a big tournament? Because we've talked about that quite a bit the last couple of weeks, and his intention to play in this tourney.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that there has to be a moment of trust for everybody. And Rosie knows, because of the robust nature of his game, if there's not a level of trust between the player, the medical people, and I'm not talking about the doctors right now, I'm talking about the trainers, and then the trainers to the doctors, and then the doctors to management. Like, there's a clearly defined chain of command. And if that chain of command isn't maintained, it's a problem. I think if everybody's honest and forthright with one another, so it starts with Austin. Are you healthy? What's ailing you? How do we fix it if it's ailing you? Then the trainer goes to the doctor. Then the doctor goes to the manager. If that chain of command gets broken, you got a problem internally. I don't think that'll happen in Toronto, but that's critical right now. And Rosie knows there are a lot of times you want to play, right, Rosie? You just want to play.
Yeah.
You don't want to let your team down, but you can't. You shouldn't be. Sometimes the team's got to save you from yourself.
Yeah, without question. And with Austin Matthews being who he is and how dynamic and what a force he is on this roster in a year where they're doing all the things we've mentioned and they have a chance to go deep and finally make a run, it feels like they're as good a well-rounded team as they've been in years and years and years. To go and have him, with the history that he's had in the first half of the season with this injury, to go and play in the Four Nations Cup and potentially get hurt and then that affect the playoff run seems crazy to me. And I just hope there isn't a situation where there is that, management versus player being at odds and one wants to do one and the other doesn't want to do it. So we'll wait and see here, but it's an interesting conversation for sure, especially with that player.
The one thing I would caution everybody, I know the Americans want him to play, and I'm sure the NHLPA wants him to play, and I'm sure the NHL wants him to play. And the TV people want him to play, especially south of the border, coming off of their Winter Classic ratings, which were an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
So they want him playing. If I'm the Leafs, I'm not playing to any one of those elements. I'm not. This is about the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to be negative, because I'm going to be working at this tournament. So I want it to be really good. But I will tell you guys this right now. When there are no Russians at an international event, there's always an asterisk by everything that goes on. Everything. I've been around international hockey a long time. Heck, I played internationally. So I'm just telling you, when there's no Russians involved, it's a different event. It's not 100% what everybody wants to do.
I agree. This thing is it's never happened before. It's not like there's this pedigree or prestige. It's not the Olympics, and the Russians aren't even in it. So what are you really winning? A best on best? I can't, every time I hear that, I kind of roll my eyes because it's simply not. One of the greatest hockey nations in the history of the game isn't even participating. You cannot call it best on best. Just another reason I hope Austin Matthews takes the option in this tournament.
See, Nick, this is why I've always liked this man. Common sense is a virtue. And Jay's got it. He gets it. And that's what that Minnesota Duluth degree gets you.
I left after a year, Pierre. I was looking forward to the degree.
No, my hockey DB says opposite, but I love the college look here because I want to get your opinion. World Junior time, we're going to get to Easton Cowan obviously momentarily, but Matthew Knies, unbelievable weekend, has a lot of chemistry going with Marner and Matthews. What's the ceiling in your mind for Matthew Knies, Pierre?
Power forward. There's a guy that used to play for the Montreal Canadiens named Mike McPhee. I don't know if you guys remember Mike, but he played at RPI. He was big, he was fast, he was strong. He's one of Bob Gainey's favorites. He never really put up huge numbers, but he was such a reliable player, penalty killing, forechecking, initiating physically. I see Knies being like him, but better. So I could see Knies being a 25 to 35 goal scorer, especially playing with those guys. You know, I know 4 in the last 2 games. I get it. Those numbers are a little elevated for him. The one thing is, and Jay, I'll appreciate this too, when he plays with a bull in a china shop mentality, look at all the room he creates for Mitchell and for Austin. Yeah. And that's his value. It was a lot like Mike McPhee when he played in Montreal. So I see similarities. I just think Austin's Knies is a little bit better player than McPhee was, but McPhee was a really good player. He was a really good player.
It is exciting. Speaking of World Juniors, when I think of World Juniors, Pierre, I think of you and just the staple and the mark that you put on that tournament. And, you know, Canada, I just think they haven't been in this low of a place ever, probably being beat out in the quarters back-to-back years for the first time. Conversely, the Americans have never been higher, winning back-to-back gold medals. What do you think is going to happen with Hockey Canada regarding that tournament? And are they going to do an overhaul? And what do you think that looks like?
First of all, Jay, thank you for those kind words. I put 9 years into that event, and I loved every single day. I never had a bad day at the World Junior. I'm really grateful for the time that I spent with Gordon Miller and all the people behind the scenes. Like, people don't realize, yeah, they see the on-air people. It's the people behind the scenes that were such staples and professionals for so long that I appreciate. One of them is a guy you don't even know, but he did a lot of your games, and I built a lot of replay packs through him. His name's Jamie Brannigan. And, you know, he'd say, you like this, Rosie? Yeah, I do. I like him because he's tough. Anyways, I think Hockey Canada is in the same position as they were after they lost in Helsinki in 2004. And Bob Nicholson was in charge then. And he said, no more messing around, no more politics. We're going to get the best players. We're not putting together a ghost roster, and we're going to get the best coaches. So if you look at the 05 team, they were the best team ever that represented Canada. And the reason why they were the best is because there was no hockey that year. But they picked the best coach, who was a no-nonsense, tough Albertan by the name of Brent Sutter. And I was at every single practice, and I was at every single game. And I can tell you right now, I sat there New Year's Day. He ran a practice. Gretzky was there. Kevin Lowe was there. Gordon Miller was there. Bob Nicholson was there. And I was there. And Wayne looked at all of us and like, not only is this a great practice, this kid, 87, he's pretty good too. I was Crosby. So the whole thing, Brent changed the whole thing. And then he goes and wins in 06 in Vancouver, which is amazing. But what he's smart about, he's got DeBoer and he's got Hartsburg, 2 really good coaches. Hartsburg takes over in 07 in Leksand, Sweden. That's a Jonathan Toews, Carey Price shootout game. No messing around. No Hockey Canada politics. We're getting the best players. Don't care if they play college or not, like Toews played at North Dakota. We're getting the best guys. And they did. And they won. Then they go to 08 in Pardubice in the Czech Republic. Hartsburg coaches again, back-to-back years. They win again. No messing around. Hartsy gets an NHL job. We all get it. He moves on. Pat Quinn comes in 09. No messing around. Stop messing around. Stop the politics.
Yeah.
Get the best people. Rosie, I think you agree with me. Nick, I think you agree with me. I would hope most Canadians agree with me. Like, stop this stuff.
I look at the board of directors, I look them up and I scroll through and look at their bios and everything else, and it's just like, it's embarrassing. Like, this is who's going to run this big hockey outfit is ESP. It does not seem like the best minds suited for the job are in place, and they need to rectify that from the top down. They got to get the right coaches in there, get the right people picking the team and making all those politic decisions and stuff. We need that to be hockey based instead of whatever BS they're doing right now.
See, Nick, I don't have to say anymore. I love
That's
this
it.
guy
No,
for
that's
a
exactly it. Sometimes I
reason.
just,
He's
I
100%
just,
right, man. He's right
I
on.
sit back, Pierre. I sit back and I just, Rosie, you take the floor. That's why I love Jay Rosehill.
No, but Jay, think about it for 1 second. Like, I wasn't messing around. Like, you can go. I don't have any notes here. I'm working notes free. I didn't know what you guys were going to ask me, but I can tell you chapter and verse from 02, 03. So from 98 to 2003, Canada didn't win a gold medal. Okay. And then in 04, they thought they were going to win a gold medal in Helsinki, and they didn't. So Bob Nicholson said, buzz off. We're changing. And they have a meeting of the minds, and that's when there was no messing around. You guys know Brent Sutter's one tough son of a gun. Like, he's not messing around. And that changed the whole thing. They won 5 straight gold medals. 5 straight.
Yeah.
I was at every one of them. Every year that I had the privilege of doing the world, and it was a privilege, and it always should be for anybody that works it. Every year for 9 years, I was in a gold medal game that Canada played in.
Oh.
That's a pretty heady number.
Wow.
And Bob Nicholson was the architect of that because he didn't mess around. No messing around.
Seems like no one's scared of Canada anymore, too, which leads us to the next conversation. Obviously, one of the top Leafs prospects in Easton Cowan.
Yeah.
Very disappointing showing. Obviously, you're well versed in the scouting world. How's he perceived? How's he viewed right now after this tournament?
Oh, I still think he's viewed in a very positive way. I think the biggest thing was that whole team got uncomfortable after Matthew Schaefer got hurt. I don't think that was handled internally well. That game against Latvia, the shoulder goes out. It's all messy. Everybody knows it. You could see the bench and Jay, you've been there. The bench just got deflated. And I'm going, well, this isn't good. And I like Dave Cameron. Many, many moons ago, we were players in the New Jersey Devils organization, and we were in training camp together. So I've known him way back to the 1980s, way early. He was always an honest hockey player, and he was always an honest hockey coach. But I can tell you right now, if you go check the tape, he lost it on his team probably halfway through that game. And you could see they didn't need that at that time. They needed something else because of the Schaefer injury, and they didn't get it. And it was never right. From that point on, that whole thing was never right. It was never right.
Yeah, frustrating time for sure. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about Jonathan Toews. He's been out dealing with some things, and he's kind of just been out of sight, out of mind for a while now. And all of a sudden, he gets towards the media saying, I'd like to make a comeback and see what I can do. And we hear he's skating, and we start to think about what would that look like. Do you know anything about where he could fit, and specifically the Toronto Maple Leafs, if that were to somehow happen? What would it look like? And what do you think Jonathan Toews could have left in the tank as far as being a contributor force to a team?
So I'm going to take you back to a little history lesson that I was a part of. In 1990, I went to work for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They missed the playoffs that year. And the last day of the season, Uwe Krupp scored a goal for the Buffalo Sabres and knocked Pittsburgh out, shot from the blue line. And they brought in Craig Patrick, Bob Johnson, Scotty Bowman, Barry Smith, and me. Okay?
Yeah.
We brought in a player because Pittsburgh hadn't had a lot of success, and they had a pretty good lineup, by the name of Brian Trottier. Where's number 19? Jonathan Toews. Trottier taught every player in that organization how to win. You can ask every player that was there for 91 and 92, the 2 cup years, and even 93, the President's Trophy year. Trottier taught everybody how to win. Guys like that are so valuable. Toews has that. Toews got that. He's been a world junior champion twice. He's been a gold medal winner in the Olympics twice. He's been an MVP of the Olympics once. He's been a Conn Smythe. Like, you go down the line, his resume is impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you guys something that I don't even know if Jonathan wants, but I can tell you right now, he would help so many teams. whether he's at 100% playing ability or whether he's at 70%.
Yeah.
Because what he does, he knows how to win.
And
He's so valuable.
It seems like when that conversation comes up, just because of his age and that he's been out of the lineup for a while, and people look at his DB and are like, oh, he only had this many goals on this year and blah, blah. It's like, buddy, it's not about him coming in here and being an all-star. It's about his pedigree and his leadership and his experience, I think, would be second to none. And if you follow the Leafs at all, they've had teams that are supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and they don't even come close. And I think a guy like that in his experience and leadership could do wonders for this locker room at where they're at right now. And I'm clamoring to get this guy because it's not going to cost you $10 million. It's going to cost you next to nothing if you can get him.
Jay and Nick, it's such a good point, and I completely agree. And again, you can go look it up, Brian Trottier and the difference that he made for our group, and ask any player that was there. And I'm talking about Paul Coffey, I'm talking about Kevin Stevens, Mark Recchi, Rick Tocchet, Mario Lemieux, Ron Francis, Joey Mullen, Ulf Samuelsson, Larry Murphy, Tommy Barrasso. Ask any of those guys how much of an impact Brian Trottier made on our team. Jaromir Jagr, he was pretty good.
It sounds like a decade all-star team you just
You
rattled
know
off.
what? We couldn't have played in this league because we would have broke the salary cap.
Probably. Pierre, you're the absolute best. Fantastic takes today. The chat was loving you. Very, very spicy stuff. Happy New Year once again. Thank you so much for your time today.
I'll always be there for you, Nick. I appreciate your professionalism. And the guy like below you, I don't know where he actually is on the screen, but he's not really below anybody. Rosie, you're such a man. You are a man, dude. I love it.
Yeah, I always feel on cloud nine after talking to you, man. As usual. Appreciate it.
See you,
Thanks
buddy.
again.
Talk to you guys later. Take care.
Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.